The Retroid Pocket 2 Plus is an amazing device capable of emulating a lot of different consoles, and the setup it can be a little bit complicated, especially if you are new into handheld retro consoles or new into Android emulation. So guys, on this guide I'm going to show you everything that you need to know how to set up this device. Before we begin, you are going to need to have one micro SD card because of the storage limitation of the Pocket 2 Plus that only comes with 32 GB of storage on it. I recommend you that you get the biggest that you can afford. Some games like the NES, they don't need a lot of storage, but if you also want to have a selection of more modern systems, with a smaller micro SD card is not going to be enough. As a recommendation, I will go with at least 32 GB card and from a good manufacturer, something like SanDisk or Samsung. Now that you have your micro SD card, you want to format it in your PC. Select the card from the drives available from the Windows, and there right-click into it and click into Format. Now you want to set it to exFAT and click into Format. You could also format the card directly on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, but you are going to be limited to FAT32. What this means is that you are going to have a limit of 4 GB for the size of your ROMs. To format it into the console itself, you want to head into the settings, then storage, select your SD card and press on the 3 dots on the right-hand corner. From here you can format your SD card. Now, most of the new devices should come with at least the 1.0.0.8 version, but if yours have an older version, you will have to update it before following this guide. You will need to go into the settings, then into Updater and search for the latest update. Once you have it in the upcoming versions, it should be automatic, so you aren't required to go once more into this menu and search for updates. Now that you're ready to start, let's go into the setup wizard. If your console is new, you should automatically start here when you start your device for the first time. If you update it from a previous version, you will have to go into the settings, then handheld settings, and advanced. Select the option Re-enter Setup Wizard to be on this screen. In here you will need to set your region, time zone, and Wi-Fi connection. After that, you're going to come to this screen where it shows you some recommended applications to install in your Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. Here the best thing to do is to simply set the Select All option and to download them all. You can always delete them afterwards, and like this you don't need to go once more into the setup wizard to install them later on. Now you're going to be asked what launcher do you want to use. I recommend that you guys use the RP2 Plus launcher, that it have a cleaner look to it, but it's a personal preference. Now when the setup wizard is done, you're going to have a blank launcher. Here on the top left corner you're going to see the Retroid Launcher logo. You can tap on it and open a sub-menu where you can change your name, image to show, and also set it into my favorite dark mode. Now let's set some apps into it. To do that, you want to press the Add App button and scroll and add all the applications that you are more surely going to use. That includes both versions of Retroarch, that is where most of our emulation cores are going to be, and add as well the rest of emulators for the different consoles that we need. Place your SD card into the RP2 Plus if you haven't already and head into Settings, then Storage and select the card. This will create all the folders for your Android device. Now again into the launcher, you want to open Retroarch. For that, press the Arch 64 application. This is going to finish the installation of it and ask you to grant access permission to your card. When it's done, you can close the application, and now let's head into emulation. Here on the bottom you will see the option of Setup. Click on it, and from here click into the option of Create ROM Folders. Now select the default SD card directory, and this will create all the folders that you are going to need for your ROMs and for the BIOS of some of the system. In this moment you have two options, guys. You can leave the micro SD card on the device and connect it to your PC with the provided USB cable, or you can take it out and use a card reader on your PC. I recommend the second one because I feel like the file transfer is a little bit faster, but either way is fine. Open your Explorer on your PC and head into the SD card. Now you are going to see a folder named Retroid Pocket Games. Open it, and here let's start by adding some BIOS for some of the consoles that require them. I can't really tell you where to find these BIOS files that you're going to need, but a simple Google search, you're going to be able to find them. There is even a GitHub repository with all of them. Here on the screen you can see the BIOS that I recommend that you copy into your Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. Now let's go back and go into the ROMs folder. Here you have folders for every system that is compatible with the RP2 Plus. Don't change the name because the naming of the folder is important on the setup. Before you start transferring files into those folders, you need to know that not every type of ROM is going to be compatible with it. So I will let you again a list on the description, and you can see it right here on the screen, with the file types that are known to work best for every system. Again, I can really not tell you where you can download the ROMs and games, but the best ROMs to use is the No Intro ROM set. Again, Google is going to be your friend. Now you want to transfer the files from every console into their corresponding folder on your SD card. For example, SNES games into the SNES folders, and so on. For GameCube, we must make something special. I'm going to let you guys the link to a wiki from Retro Handheld Devices that is going to show you how the games run on this device. But in here you want to go into the GameCube section of the wiki, and here is a small configuration file that we need to download for the Dolphin emulator. On these files is the best configuration to make your GameCube games run the best they can on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. You want to download them and extract them. Then you want to copy and paste those files into the GameCube ROMs folder. Now when you have all of your games and BIOS into the microSD card, you want to insert it once more into your RP2 Plus. A good thing to do at this point before starting to set up all the emulators and BIOS on the system is to add your account into the Google Play Store. In this way you can always be sure that you always have the latest release of the emulator or application that you are going to need. Now this device is safe, so you can add your main account, but if you so prefer you can create a new one for it. Open the Play Store and insert your login data. Once you are done, you can go into the apps and search for any update that is available and make it them. Now when it's all finished, head back into the Setup menu and move the BIOS files option and select the default SD card directory. This will set all the BIOS files that you have previously copied to the emulator that needed. Now click into Systems, and on the new window that pop out, we want to select all the consoles that you are going to be running games on. You could also choose to select all the systems, but personally I like to have a cleaner look, so I only choose the ones that I know I'm going to be using. And on the future you can always add or remove systems from this menu, so this is not a problem. Once you click OK, all of those systems will appear on the main screen. Now let's set the games inside of here. You will have to do this step to every console. Let's take as an example the Game Boy right here. Select the console, and now you want to tap the button ROMs on the bottom of the screen. When the small window opens, tap on the button that says Add. It's going to ask you to select a folder where your ROMs are located. If you follow it along, you can click into the default SD card directory and will automatically choose the corresponding folder. Now click into Scan, and this will start to scan that folder, checking the names of the games, and at the same time it's going to scrap the cover image of the games that it found. Now, sometimes you are going to have the problem that some of the games aren't named properly, or that some of the box art is not the correct one, or it simply could not find one. Let me show you how to fix this. What you want to do is to hold down on the touchscreen on the game where you want to rename it or change the box art. A small menu is going to pop up. In here you can have the option to change the box cover, ignore this game, and to rename the game. If you want to change the box art, click into the box cover. From here you have the option to choose your device, the game's database, or Google Images. For me the easiest way is to use Google Images, so you want to open that one. You want to search in Google for the name of the game and search for a cover art that you want, and hold the touchscreen on it and select Save to Device. Now you can press B to go back, and the Retroid Launcher should have changed the image automatically. The Ignore This Game option is for the occasions that you have games with more than one disc, so you want to remove the disc that you don't need to have on this screen. And the Rename Your Games option is self-explanatory. You can use it to change the name of any of your ROMs. Now let's test one of the games. As you can see, when you try to open one of them, you are going to take a notice that you don't have any chord selected. Here you can choose between manual or automatic. For simplicity, I recommend that you guys choose auto, that is going to use automatically a core depending on the console that you are trying to run your ROMs on. You could set it manually and test all the different ones to see which one works the best for you, but I haven't had any problems using the automatic configuration, so that is what I recommend. Keep doing this to all of your systems and ROMs. When you are done with that, we are going to set up all of the emulators. Let's start with Retroarch, because it's probably the one that you are going to be using the most of. Go once more into the Setup menu and from here press into Retroarch Set-up. When this window pops out, you want to click OK. This will change the automatically configuration from Retroarch with the one that defaults at Go Retroid pre-configured for us. Now go back into the My menu and let's do some changes ourselves. Open Arch64 like before, and from here I really don't like this style of menu, so we're going to be changing that. Go into the settings page and from here into user interface, scroll down to menu and change it from the default to XMB. Now you want to click Retroarch to make the changes. Open it one more time and this will have the look of the PSP UI. And now let's go over the controllers. Scroll to the settings tab and from there into input. Now the controllers should be already correctly configured, but if you want to change any of them, you can do it by going into port 1 control. What we are going to be changing here is the hotkeys of the device, and the first option is the confirm quit. I recommend you guys that you set this setting off because it's going to require that you press the quit button twice, and we are going to set it with a hotkey, so it's unnecessary. Into hotkey enable button. That is our primary hotkey that we want to set it to select. What this means is to enable any of the hotkeys, you need to press select and then the hotkey that we want to set in here. For fast forward, toggle set it into R2, into load stable, let it into L1 and save state L2. So you can save and load the state of your game with this easy to remember hotkey. Quick Retroarch is an important hotkey that you want to use every time you are done playing a game. Here you can use start, but I prefer to set it into the A button. Now into rewind, I'm going to set this to L2. The rest of the available hotkeys I don't really use, but if you are interested into any of them, now you know how to change them. Now you can set something really nifty on Retroarch, and that is the autosave and auto-load state. So go back and go into the save settings, and in here you want to turn on the autosave feature as well as the auto load state. What this does is that every time you are done playing your game and then you press the quit Retroarch hotkey, it will automatically save the state of the game, and next time you launch that game, it's going to load it in the place where you stop it. Now quit Retroarch to save the settings, and we are done with it. Let's start by PlayStation 1. You can choose between two options. You can select to use the DockStation emulator, or you can change this on the settings, so we use the Retroarch core. Here is personal preference, but on the DockStation you can get a better image quality doing some tweaks on it, but the control configuration is a little bit more difficult. And as we have already set everything up in Retroarch, I recommend for you to use it. And it works perfectly with all the games that I have tested. For that, go into the PlayStation 1, open it, and click into Edit. On the top you can see a scroll down menu. Open it, and here select the Retroarch Psp emulator and click into save. Now let's set up the rest of the standalone emulators. And we begin with the Nintendo 64. You want to go out of the Retroid Launcher and open the Mugen Plus 64 app. It's going to ask to grant permission, accept them, and now go back into the Retroid Launcher. Click to set up, and from here standalone configuration. Select the Mugen 64, and this will configure the emulator for us. Onto the Sega Saturn, we must use the Java Sanshiro emulator, so let's first configure it. Go and open it, and like every other, it's going to ask you to grant permissions. And it will ask you if you want to sync up and use the cloud savings. This is personal preference, so do as you wish. Press on the three lines on the left top corner and access the settings. Scroll down until you find Player 1 input device and tap on Edit Key Map to set up the controller. Now you want to follow along the instructions on the screen. Now, the buttons of the Sega Saturn are a little bit different than the ones on the Pocket 2 Plus, so set them out as you prefer. And we are done here. Moving along, let's set up the Nintendo DS. For this, you will have to purchase the emulator from the Play Store because it doesn't count with one. It costs $5 and is simply the best emulator that you can have for the Nintendo DS on Android. When you have it installed into your Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, you want to open it and grant permissions for storage as well as for the microphone that you are going to need for some games. Let's set up the controller, so go into the menu and then Options, and then select Virtual Gamepad. And then all the way down the bottom, there is going to be an option that says Controller Opacity. I like to set this all the way to 0% so you don't have the control on the screen. Now, what you want to do is select Key Mapping, then No Mapping, and then select Map Control. From here, you just want to remap all your buttons. When you are done, we're going to map the special keys. In here you can map everything that you want, but I'm going to show you the ones that I use. Screen Swap I set it to L1 and skip the rest until you see Half Screen Swap. Then I'm going to use R1. You can now skip the rest until the end. This will allow you to have both screens on the display at the same time, or choose what screen you want to see to have it full screen. Now go into Video Options and change Frame Skip from Auto to Normal and turn on 3D Rendering. After that you can close the emulator and it should be ready to go from the Retroid Launcher. For the Sega Dreamcast, you want to go back to the main page of the RP2 Plus and open the Red Dream emulator and choose to continue into Light Mode or Premium if you have bought it from the Play Store. And again, grant access. Now go back to the launcher and into Setup. Then Standalone Setup and select the Red Dream to load the configuration file from the Go Retroid team. Open once more the Red Dream emulator and let's set up the controller up. So you want to scroll into Input, select the port A, and here most of the key mapping should be done for you. But I have noticed that in some racing games, the input for accelerating and braking are set to L and R triggers, and the game itself didn't recognize them as triggers, so you want to change them out to CL and CR to prevent issues. For anything else, you can remove all the keys just to be sure. Now, moving along to the Psp emulator, first you want to open it from the menu, open PPSPP and grant access to the storage. Now you can go once more into the Retroid Launcher, Setup and Standalone Setup. Select the PPSPP once more and the recommended configuration files are going to be loaded directly into the emulator. And now the controllers and games should run fine. For most games, if you want to have a better graphical experience, you can set the 2x resolution, but for games like God of War, you're going to have to lower it to make it playable. Jump into the GameCube and Wii emulator. You remember the configuration files that I told you to download from the wiki? Well, we are going to need them now. Open the Dolphin emulator from the menu, allow it to access files. Now go back into the menu, enter into the Files app, go into the internal storage from the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, go to the Dolphin for handheld folder, and here is a configuration folder. Now search for the dolphin.ini and the GFX files. Long press on them and delete both of them. Now go to your SD card folder and Retroid games, ROMs, and then GameCube. That is the place where we copied the community configuration files. Select both of them again with a long press, then select Copy to and go back to the Dolphin configuration folder and paste them in there. Now the games are going to run at a lower resolution with these configuration files, but it's necessary because of the RP2 Plus isn't powerful enough to run GameCube games at full resolution, and into the Wii games, as I mentioned in my review, isn't really worth it, at least that you spend a bunch of time playing with the settings. Now for the PS2, there is another system that I don't really recommend so much, but using it with this handheld device because some lighter games will run okay, but most of them they are unplayable. But I'm going to show you anyway how to set it up if you want to test them. Open the Either SX2 app, go into the Settings tab and scroll down. When you see the Fast On-Save option, click on it and it's going to ask you to select a BIOS. So go into your BIOS folder and set the BIOS file that we copied there. Now it's going to ask you to add a game directory. Do that, and now it's time to rebind the controllers the same way as we have done before. And into the controller menu, set the touchscreen controller view to none to hide the touchscreen controller. Let's change now some settings to improve the way games run on it. Go to the app settings and turn off frame limit, now cycle rate to 60% and cycle skip to maximum underclock. Some games are going to run nice and others will be terrible. You can check the spreadsheet on the wiki to see what games have already been tested and how they run. The last setup that we're going to do is for the 3DS emulator. Now, I don't recommend that you use the Citra that comes included with the system, but that you download the Citra MMJ from the GitHub. You will find the link on the description. Open Chrome and paste the link. Now scroll down and download the latest version available. On it, the game should run a little bit better than in Citra Enhanced, but don't get your hopes too high. You're going to have some games with graphical glitches and others running slow, so test them out. Spin the controls, so open the application and after giving permissions, you want to tap into the three dots on the right hand corner and open Input Binding. Now, as for settings, depend on the game that you want to try them out. Thankfully, on the wiki and in some forums, there is a big community that you can search how to optimize it for the game that you want to play. When you run your game, you're going to have the controllers over the screen. Now, if you want to remove them, you have to open one game and scroll your fingers downwards from the top of the screen to bring out the Android menu. The left pointing arrow and the Citra menu will pop out. Tap into Settings and here select the checkbox for Hide Input Buttons. And that's it. Now, so that your 3DS games run from this version of Citra on the Retroid Launcher, you will have to set it so. Open the launcher, go to the 3DS menu, tap on Edit, and from the drop-down menu, select the Citra MMJ and save the configuration. And guys, I think that is pretty much it, or at least the most important steps. If you think that I have left something out, just leave me a comment and I can try to help you out. Thanks for watching this long video, and if you have made it so far and you found it useful, leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Again guys, thanks for watching and like always, see you on the next time. Bye bye!